I'm just kind of waiting a little bit.
I
Let's
know.
do this.
Good luck,
We're
Teresa.
online.
So honestly, yes. No.
Exactly. Just go like this, and I'm all.
Okay, I know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call it. It is 7:01, and this is the regular meeting of the Kaneland District 302 Board of Education. We'd like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. And we'll start with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And a roll call, please.
Mrs. Witt,
Here.
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Lawler,
Here.
Mr. LePayton,
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak,
Here.
Mr. Rivas, Mrs. Sparber.
Here. With 7 board members present, we do have a quorum tonight. Are there any items from the consent agenda that board members would like to move to new business? Anything? All right, hearing none, we'll move on then. We're looking for approval of the agenda tonight as presented.
Second.
And a roll call when you're ready, please.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mr. LePayton,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Move on now to the board and superintendent salutes, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Leda.
Thank you. You have the great fortune tonight to meet 4 of the best spellers in Kane County. Yeah, give a round of applause. So what we'll do, parents and board members and spellers, I'll call your name if you come up here. I'll shake your hand, take your certificate. Then if you would, stay up here, please, so then that way we can get all 4 of our spellers, and then we can get a couple pictures, and then we can put it on social media and our website and highlight our wonderful spellers, okay? So our first speller, well, first of all, if we review or rewind back to December, we had the bad weather and we had to cancel that one and move it. And so with the rescheduled date, we were able to go to our schools, and we had the 4 winners, 1 from each of our schools, but then we have the top 10 from each school come to the high school, and that one is more of a practice. That's more of an opportunity for all of our students, especially the top 4, to practice before they move on to the county meet, which is later on this month. And so these are each of the winners from the 4 buildings. First of all, from Blackberry Creek, Jack Nelson. Come on up, Jack. Congratulations. So come on up if you just mind, stay right here with us. From Kaneland John Stewart, Audrey Walker. Congratulations, Audrey. No, right here. From Kaneland McDowell, Daniel Summerlot. Congratulations. And our overall winner in first place in the district from Kaneland John Shields is Winnie Phillips. Winnie. Congratulations, Winnie. If you want to stand right there, I'll get a picture. And then parents, if you'd like to get a picture, get a good angle, go ahead and do that. I give you permission. At some point they'll say, no, don't come around, Mom and Dad, so go ahead.
So for those of us who weren't there, can we find out what the winning words were?
Right.
Winnie's was debris. I remember that.
Do you want to share what your winning word was? From the school bee?
Do you remember? It's been a while.
Forget? Audrey, do you remember?
Mom.
Remnant? Okay, and Daniel?
I don't know.
It's over.
All right. Again, congratulations. And
Nice.
good job. Then the rest of us, we need to continue to use spell check.
Yes.
That was all I had for students.
Okay,
Congratulations again.
thank you. Anything else? Okay. Pardon me?
Do you want to let him go? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So if those who came for the salutes would like to leave, it's okay. We won't be offended. You're welcome to stay. Our meetings, it might be a shorter meeting tonight than usual, but it still will be another hour or hour and a half before we're done. So if you want to go, that's perfectly fine. Congratulations again.
Congratulations. You're welcome. Good luck.
Okay. So this is our first opportunity for public comment. The board values public input to inform our decision-making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education and are required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. The board does not enter into debate or respond to questions during the public comment time. If you choose to speak publicly, we do ask that you stand, state your name and village of residence for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have that opportunity. That being said, I will open the floor now to public comment. Are there any public comments tonight? And there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting as well. Okay, hearing none, I will move on. Tonight's consent agenda contains the following action items: the approval of accounts payable and payroll from January 2018, the approval of minutes of the January 17th, 2018 regular meeting, the approval of the resignations and employment of staff, the approval of motion not to release executive session minutes from July through December 2017, the approval of policies from press on second reading, and the approval. It also contains the following informational items: the student suspension data report, the employee position report, the FOIA requests report, and field trip notifications. So we're looking tonight for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
And I'll second that. And then a roll call, please.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. LePayton.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Move on now to our first item of new business, which is J1, the approval of capital projects for 2018-2019.
Yep. If you recall, there's always an update in the fall. Julianne, Dr. Fuchs comes and provides an update after FAC and FPC have considered a number of the proposed projects that are gathered from the buildings. And then Mark and Mr. Payton, who's also here, and Julianne spent a lot of time whittling those down, and then faced with what we have within our budget, it is then presented, and now have the opportunity tonight to hear another update and then an approval for recommendation for action. So Dr. Fuchs.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Payton to wait at the microphone in case if there are any questions of the technical nature. He will be able to answer those. What I can tell you from the report that you have and have had an opportunity to look at, we have about $1.2 million in identified projects. All of the projects are projects at some point that need to be completed. However, as you know, at the last board meeting, you authorized a $1.5 million reduction plan. Again, we have a large structural deficit that we are trying to close the gap. We ended last year with a $1.5 million deficit. We've got about a 1.6 plan for this year. We are trying very hard to close that deficit and to close that gap. In order to do so, we've reduced planned expenditures for next year. This is the first approval getting ready for next year's budget. The reason why it's coming so early is because in order to get these projects done during the summer, we have to start all the prep work, get the bids done, work with the contractors, work with the architect in some cases. There's just a number of steps that have to be done between now and summer, because summer is really our only time in which to complete some of the projects. The projects are prioritized. The projects that we're asking the board to approve tonight total about $548,000. They include life safety projects at Blackberry and McDowell, which you know must be completed within the next 4 years. Last year was year one. We have 4 more years to go. Masonry work At Blackberry, Shields, McDowell, and Harder, the masonry work is necessary to keep the buildings dry so that we don't have water into the buildings. We have some seal coating and crack filling at Stewart, Shields, Harder, and a portion of the high school. Again, we definitely want to maintain our asphalt. Last summer, we did not do any asphalt because we did the carpet at the elementary schools, so we put lots of resources into there. So we have a lot of asphalt that needs to be cared for. The high school east gym floor and bleacher replacements. We've been told multiple times it cannot be refinished anymore. We've refinished it and refinished it. It's stripped down to as far as it can go. However, when they replace that gym floor, the bleachers are no longer then in compliance with ADA. So because of that, we're not only going to need a new floor, but new bleachers. That's one of the projects that we have to get on right away in order to get those things ordered. The Harder track surfacing, if you all can believe it, the Harder track is 10 years old. Tracks should be resurfaced every 8 to 10 years. We're on the 10th year. That's actually a question I had answered earlier today. The problem with the high school track is that we waited 13 years to resurface it the first time. And so now it's in need of replacement because there's structural damage that happened because we didn't care for it in a timely manner. So we want to prevent that from happening at Harder. We do believe that the last year repairs to the high school track can hold that track one more year while we prioritize and reorganize. And then in addition to that, at Harder, being that it's 10 years old, there's fitness equipment in the fitness room that's used on a daily basis for physical education classes that needs to be replaced. It's either broken or, well, it's broken, basically, the pieces that we're going to be replacing. And so by doing so, by approving these projects tonight, the board is authorizing us to move forward on each of these projects and authorizing us to spend no more than $548,000 without coming back to the board and letting you know if we encounter any troubles along the way that are above our estimates. There are lots of important projects below the line. The very next one is of great importance. It's the high school science classroom upgrade. There are 3 classrooms at the high school, the science classrooms in the original C wing. They are very, very high priority, but unfortunately with the reductions we're trying to make in order to balance our structural deficit, we're going to need to wait just a little bit longer to complete these projects. We've got the building automation controls. Once again, the bad part about that, if one of these buildings goes down, we will need to replace it at that time. It would be better to do it proactively, but we're going to hope that they all make it one more year. There are 2 bathrooms in the main foyer at the high school that are original. They are all functional and clean. They're just would benefit from some aesthetic improvements. The dishwasher in the cafeteria at the high school, similarly, we're going to hope it lasts one more year. If it doesn't, when it breaks, I'll be here telling you that we need to replace it now. Security cameras, we would like to get some at the elementary school and a few more at Harder. Again, important, but we're hopeful that we can make it one more year without. The band equipment, similarly, they've had 2 years where they've replaced large equipment. They still need a little bit more, but we've also replaced band uniforms. So these other projects above the line, we feel are slightly higher priority at this point in time. Our spring baseball field drainage repair continues to be an ongoing issue. We believe we've got a couple solutions out there now, but again, once the water dries up, the field is playable. It just depends on how wet the spring is. Boiler pumps are similar to your dishwasher and your building automation. We're going to hope that these last one more year. And then if they break, we'll need to replace them at that time. So you can see, we've got projects identified that we feel need to be done. There are projects below the line that we're taking a slight risk of saying these should really be done, but if they last one more year, that's a good thing for us. And then other projects down there that we'd really like to do to improve our facilities. The prioritization was difficult, but we believe that we've got the plan put together in a way that will best meet the needs of the district. With that being said, both myself and Mr. Payton would be happy to answer any questions.
This went through the Facilities Planning Commission, or Committee?
Committee,
Commission.
yep.
Really important.
They did. They saw the list and asked questions about the list, gave a little background, similar to this, but with a little more detail. It's more similar to the October presentation that the board heard than tonight. Tonight was pretty quick because it was a review for all of you.
And FAC?
They heard it too
Okay.
and saw the list.
And CAC too.
I don't think CAC did. They wouldn't generally see it.
Okay.
Yeah, they generally deal with more academic issues, whereas FAC are the financial and FPC are the facilities. So it's a little bit outside their scope. You know what though, Gail? I did report at the beginning of the year to the CAC on the projects that we had completed over the summer.
Right, okay.
It's more
So,
of a review.
right,
Previous summer.
yeah.
So what changed with the high school gym? Initially, if I recall correctly, we were not going to be able to, we were going to able to assess at refinishing time whether it's a go or no-go to replace everything. What changed? Have we gone
I
and
don't-
gotten more experts looking at it?
No,
What-
I don't
what
believe
changed?
that's completely accurate. I think with what we were told was that we can make an attempt to refinish the floor. The problem is if it doesn't work, because you're getting so close to the tongue and groove in
Sure.
the wood floor, if it doesn't work, then you're in the middle of July trying to get new floor, new bleachers, all that, which doesn't seem practical. You wouldn't be able to hold gym class until you got that done once the school year started.
True.
And there's lead times on, especially the bleachers. I would imagine you could probably scramble and come up with a wood floor. But the bleachers would be a major issue.
Can you elaborate, why do we have to do the bleachers? I mean, other than just ADA?
Yeah, they're not compliant. So once you remove them from the wall,
Is that what the qualified ones
Yes.
are? Okay,
and the only way to replace the floor is to remove the bleachers.
okay. What percentage of that number is floors versus bleachers?
It's real close to half and half.
Okay.
Is it, it's maybe a silly question, but I'm thinking of wood floors, like in my house, I can choose a thickness, so that it has the ability to be refinished more times, or like an engineered floor or whatever. I mean, could we spend, if we spent $10,000 extra now on a thicker floor?
I think in general, gym floors are going to be
Just
gym
whatever they
floors. The problem, and this is all prior to my working with the district, but the problem, as I understand it, is there was some major damage done to the floor at some point in the past, and they really had to sand and sand and sand to get that damage out, which has created the situation we're in now.
That was when the roof fell in and we had to quick fix it.
Okay, I just thought if we could spend a little more to get a thicker floor
Yeah,
and then
understood.
eke a few more years
I mean, that's
out
certainly
of
something that we
finishing.
could talk to the architect about too, and just make sure.
Yeah.
But I believe, in general, a gym floor is a gym floor.
Okay, thanks.
Now, that has no bearing on what's above the,
The other gym? Upper gym?
The
upper
mezzanine,
gym?
no.
Yeah, okay.
The life safety projects, you said were in year 1 of 4. Is that roughly 25% of the total number for life safety? I don't recall what the,
Not
That-
really. I did break it out so that we're doing a little every year, but some of the stuff doesn't work out quite to where I've got 25% in each bucket, but
roughly?
yeah.
Okay.
If you add the masonry into it, because there's some, because part of that masonry was in the life safety,
Part
part
of
of
the
it's not.
masonry is in the life
Yeah,
safety.
so it's a little closer than just the 15, right? But,
Correct.
yeah, so, we had 5 years total to do it.
Yeah, okay,
So if I said you're one of 4, I meant you're one of 5,
okay, so
Yeah.
20%?
Yeah.
roughly. Okay.
so, good.
Middle school track. So we're talking this for next year. What are we doing for how it presently exists? Because there's some rough areas in there.
Yes.
Are we patching that this year or what?
I'm going to look into that, but I don't know what they can do. I mean, it's down to the asphalt.
There's a couple, I walked it. There's like 3 areas where it needs a little repair. There's one area that is buckled. I
Yep.
can appreciate that, but that being the most challenging one,
Mhm.
area, if you will. I just, the rest of it, I mean, I'm not an expert, but the rest of it looked pretty good to me. Compared to the high school last year, which was trashed during football season.
Well, there was a couple of small dings in it, but those got filled in.
Correct, and it looked really good for
Yeah.
$5,000.
Oh, I think it was much less than $5,000. I think
Well,
that's what we budgeted for.
that's what
But
I-
I think.
I mean, originally it was $500,000 that came in here, but they wanted the world. But we did what we had to do to keep us going.
Correct.
So I don't know, I'm sure you had the experts look at the middle school. I just don't want, if it's a 8-10 year cycle, great, but if ours lasted a little longer, it's unfortunate we have to.
Well,
pinch
it's
in
similar
a
to
sense.
a parking lot that you want to seal coat and crack fill and things like that. You want to keep that surface up,
True.
or the water gets at it and you end up with structural damage, kind of like what we've got at the high school where the cold joints are opening up. And that's where the big problems are with the cracks in the high school surface, is it's the structure underneath it is opening up.
And I think that's that spot that I'm referring to at the middle school. It's
Yeah, well, there was
buckled
one
underneath.
spot, that was a sprinkler leak that caused that.
Was it?
That little bubble there, yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure you got the experts looking at it.
So I have a question for both Dr. Fuchs and Dr. Layden. Is there any benefit, would you see any benefit to say, for the board to approve this so that if anything comes in under bid or under budget, any of the bids come in under budget, that if we said use that money toward the items below the line, so like if something came in 10,000 under, then we replace a dishwasher or something like that, is there a benefit to that, or with the cuts, would you prefer to just wait and have the discretion of where to spend that money?
I think we talked about that last year also. So I think what would be ideal is if we, depending on how much it is and the priority here, that if we had the discretion that we could bring it back to the board and share that this is, they came in under budget, based on the other needs, this is what we're going to recommend to do moving forward. So I think that discretion would help us.
But we don't, we can just recommend, use the recommendation as
Yes.
is, and can always bring things back to us.
Correct.
I just wonder if it was worth putting it in the motion to just let.
I would prefer you didn't.
there's time. Okay, I was going to ask you guys next. I'm asking first if it's beneficial in any way, and since you said no, then.
I had one last question. You gave us the breakdown of projected cost savings last week, and I forgot to grab it to compare it to this. Where are we at? It was 20 to 30% if
For
members.
capital projects, yeah, we're right on target. This
Okay.
is the first of the different categories.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'll make colored copies in the future, but because it's the first one,
No, that's fine.
it's one line and
Okay, so
the light
you fell within your 20, the range of what was on the schedule?
that's correct.
Thank you.
That's where I made this chart from,
Okay.
so.
And we have a potential 95,000, meaning the automation controls, the dishwasher, and border pumps, which could come in if they break.
Mm-hmm,
All right, so on top of that.
yeah.
And one last question. How close is the security cameras to becoming part of technology upgrade?
I'm not
So
sure I
that, does that
understand.
qualify to go into the technology side? Because the technology is going to drive all this stuff.
Rather than capital.
Yeah, we put it in this plan because of the cost. Additionally, security cameras are affixed to a building.
True.
So school code says if something is affixed to a building, it becomes in the O&M budget. It's operations and maintenance, buildings and grounds, because it's affixed to a building. We assign it a function of technology because that's what it is, but it's in the O&M budget.
Yeah, there's no underlining. I see that as something
Yeah.
that needs to happen,
Yep.
especially with today's world. And if you can stick it under technology, they got a big budget.
That would be under the education fund. And if that's the fund that's in the greatest need right now for money, is the education fund. And again, school code says if it's affixed to a building, it's O&M.
And there's no underlying, maybe it could go over here.
The software to control it could go in the education fund, but that we tend to keep as a package. When you buy the hardware, software comes with it, so you tend to bundle it. But certainly, we can put that in the education fund. I don't think the board is generally looking for more ways to spend money in the education fund,
No, I just.
being that the deficit
just a
is so
question,
large.
Just a question,
Yeah,
Just
no.
a question, because I know
Yeah.
technology has a big fund.
It, they have expenses too. Yeah. Remember, they're not getting away with no reductions. There's a portion of that that's being reduced as well. Our reductions are across the board. Not equally as possible, but with the least impact on students as possible.
Correct.
So,
Okay, thank you.
you bet. Fair question.
One last one. I'm assuming the gym floor and the track and the seal coating are bid projects? So those will come back once the bids are received for
Yes.
approval or not?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Thank you.
And masonry as well.
Mason-
Yeah, we're
okay.
going to do that one too.
All right, thank you.
What's
The
it-
fitness equipment, that's got the 50 on there, Ryan, I think we're going to buy that off of a cooperative purchase.
Okay.
So then it wouldn't need to be bid because the cooperative bids it. We got that from EE&I, didn't we, or which one? Oh, NTPI maybe?
NJPA
Yeah.
or
So-
E&I think we did some of each.
Yeah, so we'll look for
with
the
high school.
cooperatives and let the high school pick off of those lists that have already been bid. So there's several cooperatives where you can get that.
Okay,
So, but the other ones definitely are bid.
all right.
This
Thank
is the same one the high school got it from? So,
Yeah.
our gym, or equipment from the high
Well,
school?
it could potentially, yeah, it kind of depends on what they want, and what they already have here, we may want to try and keep it similar brand.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, the recommendation is that the board direct the administration to move forward with the planning for the following capital projects as presented in the total estimated amount of approximately $548,000. And the details are listed below the recommendation. It's the life safety projects, the masonry work, the seal coating, crack filling, the replacement of the east gym floor and the bleachers, the resurfacing of the track at the middle school, and the replacement of some of the fitness equipment at the middle school.
So moved.
Second.
Any further clarification needed or comments? If none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. LePayton.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Mr. Payton and I will get started on that because, as you mentioned, those bids take time to develop and create the specs and all of those things. So thank you. Can you stay for the second item? Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
We'll move
I
on
didn't sit
now
down.
to item
I'm good to go.
J2, which is the approval to reject all bids for lawn care.
Dr. Fuchs?
Thank you. So thank you to the board for letting us explore this option. Once we explored it, we quickly learned that it was not financially feasible. As you can see, it's almost double the cost to have a contractor as it is to continue doing it on our own. The problem does continue in the spring before we get college students, and in August after the college students go back to school and we're trying to get the buildings opened. Those are 2 times of the year when the lawns we need extra help. Unfortunately, this contracted service is not a way that we can do that. And so we will continue, once the board rejects all the bids, which there were only 2, we will continue to provide that service from within the maintenance department. And Mr. Payton can continue to look for some part-time help that's seasonal, where you pay them the seasonal rates that you'll approve in the spring. And hopefully we can continue to maintain our lawns to the best of our ability. Is there anything that you would want to? Yeah. So.
Questions?
Comment. This is when the college kids are gone, but when school's not in service, right?
No.
Not in session, rather.
No, it's during the school year. That's the challenge, is
Okay.
during the school year, we don't have our college help like we have over the summer.
Right.
In the spring and the fall. And that's when you've got all your spring sports and all your fall sports going. It's just a really labor-intensive time of the year for the grounds folks. So we were looking at this as a possibility to kind of alleviate that.
The reason I asked is I was just wondering if the bus drivers would be a good source of people to explore.
Potentially.
That was my only comment.
Maybe if
Waubonsee students.
I was just going to say, if any of our students stick around and go to Waubonsee, yeah. I did know of one student here graduated who was doing a golf course, while at Waubonsee, same type of idea. Maybe.
Thank you for those suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions, we're looking for a recommendation or a motion that the board rejects all bids for lawn care services, as the lawn care will continue to be provided by Kaneland CUSD 302 maintenance staff.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please, when you're ready.
Mrs. Pavlak?
Aye.
Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
Mrs. Barber?
Aye.
Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Mr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mr. LePayton?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Payton.
We'll move on now to item J3, which is the approval of school fees for 2018-2019 school year.
Yes, annually, the board hears recommendations for school fees, and if you recall, last year, FAC had a recommendation to go on a 3-year schedule, and Dr. Fuchs will provide an update on that and the recommendation for next year's fees.
Very good. The FAC had an opportunity to review the fees that were collected last year, but last year would have been prior to the implementation of the new fees. They'll be able to monitor what was taken in this year, next year, when we have a full year's worth. And until that time, they felt comfortable not raising fees again, keeping it under the 3-year plan, where for 3 years, they would remain the same. And then following that 3rd year, we would look at the average CPI increase and do the calculation, and then potentially increase fees on that 4th year. So the 18-19 school year, as Dr. Layden mentioned, would represent year 2 of the fee increase that was implemented for this year. So the fee schedule that you see on the page here, both for textbook fees and curriculum-related fees, the recommendation is to keep them the same as the 17-18 school year. Please note 2 things of interest. We'll need to do the driver's ed hearing, which we do every year. I'll prepare that for February. And then the discretionary fees would be the same. Please remember the lacrosse fee will be calculated separately based on the approval back in the fall. And lastly, hot lunch prices. The Federal National School Lunch Program for the middle school has not yet announced their price. Their delay is due to the current administration and not knowing which direction they are headed. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then we basically have, I would say, to the end of the school year to set the lunch fees for next year. And together, we'll do the middle school and all the other lunch fees once we know what that is, assuming they set the rate between now and then. So that's the update. But the reason why I bring these fees to you now is because February 24th is our Little Night, what are we calling it? Little Nights? Young Nights kindergarten registration.
Oh, okay.
So it has a new name. Sorry, I couldn't remember if it was little or young, and thank you. So Young Nights. So we want to have all the registration information ready for that, and to do so, we need to have the fees approved for curriculum and textbooks.
Questions, comments from board members?
Yes. As we know, lacrosse is new to us, fee structures and such, and I understand that they do have to pay, the arrangement was that they have to pay for everything.
Yes.
The question is, do they start here in February, which is this week coming up? Do they have every price structure already set for them, what they need to shell out, if you will, to the school? Do we know that?
I don't know that yet. I don't know if, based on the final numbers of the informational meeting, because based on informational meeting, when they find out how many students want to participate, that's what would be the breakdown. So I don't know if they have that final number. But once they have that meeting and they get their final numbers, then that money will be divided up evenly.
We could report that in a Friday update once we have it.
But that was, just to clarify, there was their part, what the students pay, their equipment and all this other good stuff. That's, I see that as separate as opposed to the things that were going to be related to the school, like for instance, the refs. I'm just naming things, not that that's what it is, but those things that they need to come up money to pay for as well. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, they're coming up with, the agreement was that they would pay for all of that, transportation, training services, referees, they'll be doing all of that. So based on the number of students and based on what the estimated cost is, each one of the students will get an amount at the beginning of the season for their portion.
Right, and again, my question is, because of the fact that they start here in February, and I'm sure they have to get those numbers out to their participants, if you will. Do they have that information? Is what I'm asking.
And they may, I don't know, they may have, I don't know that already. I mean, I don't know that yet, but I'll find out and let you know.
Thank you. That's what, Thursday here, coming up, Wednesday, Thursday? Whatever February starts.
Thursday.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just a clarification on the sports fees for the high school. Is that amount per sport?
Yes, it is.
Is there anything that indicates, after if they're involved in two, that want to go into the third one, they don't have to pay for that, or is?
Volume discount, is that what you're going
Yeah.
for?
The board in the past has never, well, actually, it's the FAC, has never recommended to the board to support a family cap or a sport cap.
Okay.
For various reasons. If you would like me to bring that information back to the board, I can, but every year, not this year, because we're not changing fees,
Right.
but when we change fees, we always have that discussion, and it's never been a recommendation to do so
Okay.
from the FAC.
I know. Okay. I mean, I know some of the school districts do that, but I just didn't know whether.
One of the reasons, one of the main reasons is our costs do not go down because a person chooses a third sport.
Right.
So that's one reason. And then the second reason, if you'll recall, when we look at the district versus the amount of money we're collecting, high school athletics alone, the district supports by about $775,000. If you take all sports across the board in clubs and activities, the district supports those activities by about $1.1 million, in addition to what's brought in for fees. So the FAC, to be fiscally responsible, has not
Okay.
moved in that direction.
I've just heard people ask about that one.
Absolutely, it would be nice for families.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Just to clarify, on the hot lunches, the high school does not participate with the national program, right?
That's correct.
It's just the junior high.
That's correct.
I don't know if does it touch the elementary as well?
Just for the milk, but not lunches.
Right. But I know that the high school, we choose to try
Yeah.
to stay within those boundaries.
And actually, we do get some reimbursements for those sack lunches, but I can't remember if it's state or federal. I'd have to look for the elementary ones that we provide for the students that.
Free and reduced?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a feeling we get a little bit back from those, if I remember correctly.
Others? Okay, if there are none, we're looking for a motion that the board approves the textbook curriculum and discretionary fees for the 2018-19 school year as presented with no changes from the 2017-18 school year.
So moved.
And I'll second that. And a roll call whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. LePayton.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. The final item on new business tonight is item J4, the auditor RFP update.
Yeah, Dr. Fuchs, we just, as you know, our 3-year contract just expired, and we're exploring looking into another contract, and Julianne will give us an update and start having conversations about the timeline and some board member participation.
Thank you. I was pretty excited. We did receive 7 packets that we reviewed last week. The 3 FAC members that did that are named here. It's Lisa DiCharo, Steve Drosenko, and Angie Randall. Additionally, myself and Lynn Meth, my assistant. I did send them thank you notes. It took over 3 hours to review them, to narrow the pool. We are recommending to the board that the board interview 3 firms in addition with FAC members. Those 3 firms would be Klein Hall, Sickich, and Lauterbach, and Ammon. I would like to get 1 to 3 board members to serve on the interview team, and I've given you potential interview dates here. I'm hopeful that the couple board members that participate, between your schedules and mine, we can get this to our FAC members, and then we'll offer those 3 folks to serve on the interview team as well. If they can't participate, we'll offer it to the other FAC members. And ideally, we would want to get an interview team between 5 and 7 people so that we have a nice selection of individuals selecting the next auditing firm. Any questions?
What is the current name of the one we have?
Sickage.
And that's one of the finalists as well.
It is.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right.
On the backside, this is the rubric that we used. Each person did their own rubric for each of the 7 firms. And then I developed a spreadsheet where I totaled and averaged. And then together, once everybody was done, we looked at the overall scores. We talked about the top 3 companies. And there was a natural break between the top 3 and the next 3. We were trying to decide, did we want to interview 2 or 3? But the scores between 2 and 3 were close. But then there was a bigger break between 3 and 4, so that's how we came up with 3. Additionally, it was mentioned because Sickich, our current auditor, is 1, it would be nice to have 2 to see the difference between them and 2 other firms. So that's kind of the process that we used last week on Wednesday night. So,
Okay. So are there board members who are interested in participating on the interview committee?
I can do on any of them except for the Monday, the 12th, February 12th. That's the only date that I would not be able to.
And you're okay adding that to your negotiation and insurance committee schedule?
Yep.
I can only do the 15th, but I'd be happy to do it.
same.
And I could do it as well, but my conflict would be Tuesday, the 13th. So whatever works.
So we're doing all these days?
No, these are
Just
just
one.
choice, just
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah, we need about 3 hours, so Thursday, the 15th, from 6 to 9 would work well, especially if we've got multiple people that are available.
How many do you want?
2 or 3, Teresa?
Okay.
Probably, actually, the majority of a quorum. We don't want to
We
have,
don't want a majority.
exactly,
So
we
only
don't.
want two.
We only want 2, yeah,
Okay.
because we don't want to be in violation.
Is anybody, I'm just throwing this out there, Aaron and Ryan are not on the negotiation team and not otherwise committed to things?
Send them.
That's why I
I'm also
volunteered.
asking them, so the 15th
be
you're
good,
good,
yeah.
and the
That'd be
15th
good
you were
idea.
good.
Yeah, that's why I volunteered.
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Are y'all okay with that? Okay.
But so, would you be doing all 3 that one night? Is that what you're?
I'm planning to. Assuming that all of the companies can be there, which if I give them enough notice, I would think that they can get a team here. I'll get on it right away.
I'm assuming
I'm
district
not,
office.
I'm not, no. I
Yeah,
just-
we'll do it in the district office.
So
Yeah,
it'll be the 15th from 6 to 9.
Yeah, for Ryan and Aaron.
okay. Thank you very much.
That'd be great. Thanks, guys. Okay. That concludes new business. We'll move on now to the superintendent and board report.
A couple updates tomorrow night, just as Julianne mentioned that kindergarten registration is coming up soon. Eighth grade has the high school has the 8th grade open house tomorrow night. So that's from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock for letters A through K, and then from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, L through Z. They do a typical tour, question and answer session. So if you're able to attend tonight, or if you have an incoming freshman, you're required to attend, let me know. We'd be happy to introduce you to our audience. And then we have 2 speak negotiation sessions coming up between now and our next board meeting. So for Teresa, Shauna, and Gail, information will be coming out, an agenda will be coming out, but it is this Thursday, the 1st, and then next Thursday, the 8th. Thursday, the 1st is at 4:30, and then the 8th starts at 5:30. But again, reminders will come out.
Where are we going to, where are we going to meet? Because you usually start somewhere first, at the 4:30 one?
Same thing, we'll probably keep it here in the 6th grade team room, and then we'll meet in one of the classrooms off to the side.
Okay,
And that'll come in the information.
okay.
And then foundation, we do have, we moved our foundation meeting due to negotiations to next Wednesday, the 7th. And as I looked on the notes, I saw that based on Pedro's calendar, that he had Ryan down for that. But if you'll recall, to start the school year, for consistency with the foundation as they go through the grants and they go through some of that conversation, for consistency purposes, we decided to have one person on that, and Shauna started serving it last year when she became a board member. So instead of having Ryan for that consistency purpose, I just want to recommend to have Shauna come because Shauna's attended the other meetings this year. I want to make sure the rest of the board is.
So do we both need to be there or just one?
Just Shauna.
Just Shauna for foundation.
All right.
And then we'll make sure we communicate and get the
Okay.
agenda. That'll be a busy week for you, Shauna.
And then I'll actually take the Finance Advisory Committee meeting then on Monday as the secondary. We had discussed that
Yeah.
before. I'll take it since she has Wednesday and I don't have anything else, so.
Teamwork.
Did you have anything else on foundation?
No,
I mean, on the
FAC, I was just going to remind you that it was also changed due to negotiations, and it's Monday, but it sounds like you've got it. So I think I'm all set then. Thank you very much.
Okay. And then those of us going to the 1 o'clock meeting on Thursday, the committee meeting, is that in district office, correct?
District
Yes, it
office,
is.
Yes,
Okay. Okay,
that was all I had.
that's all you have?
But then the negotiations are back here, right?
That's it for me, too. I'm sorry, Gail,
But
what?
then the negotiations are back here.
That's correct.
Yeah, that evening.
Yep.
Anything from board members? Nothing? Okay, we'll move on now. Topics for future agendas?
I'd like to suggest one.
Okay.
So we bring students to do the hooray hurrah because they did very well. at state or wherever they went, conference and such. But we don't get to touch all of them. All of them, what I mean by that is like clubs and what have you. I'd like to propose that we at least think about bringing one or two to give us their spiel of what they're doing. Give them 10 minutes to give us a little presentation skill. I don't know what all the clubs we have. And it gives them the ability to speak, to perform, put
mean every
things together.
meeting?
Huh?
Every meeting invite one?
I let the administration do whatever they, whatever works. Obviously, some of our meetings are really heavy. Might be able to fit one. But give them a limit, just like band. They got 8 minutes to be on that field to get the whole program together.
Yeah.
In and out. And so it gives us the opportunity to learn who's on those chess clubs. I saw a tweet on them recently, and all the others that we have, and at the same time it gives us a feel of learning what else is out there the students are doing.
So under our board agreements, I guess we need a thumbs up or thumbs down if people want to discuss bringing representatives from clubs to board meetings to present what they do and who they are. Or do you want to talk about talking about it, or what do we want?
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I'm just not sure that that's a topic as opposed to a review of how the board recognizes clubs would seem to fit better as a board topic for discussion. But adding a schedule of more clubs to, I'm not against it, it doesn't seem like it's per se a topic.
I guess, and I know that at least a couple times a year, administration will come and talk about the activities of, these were the fall clubs and the activities, and so they do give us some of the highlights. Now, it's from an administration's point of view, not having the students themselves do those presentations. So is that the distinction that you're trying to make, Pedro?
Exactly. And here's the other kicker, at least I was thinking. We have that over there. Grandma and Grandpa, not everybody lives in the States. Gives Grandma and Grandpa the opportunity, or other family members, to view them in action, if you will, at the same time. At the same time, we're taking advantage.
They are invited.
Yeah.
True.
When we do the activities roundups, right? All the students are
Right.
invited.
Well,
So if they're not coming, it's
Yeah.
a choice.
Well, those that are being recognized, yes, all the groups are invited. It's usually after the season is concluded or shortly thereafter, whatever their accomplishment was, but yeah, they're invited.
And my point there is, not all of them make them to conference, to states, and what have you. But yet they do, they have a club, they have a organization, whatever it may be.
I think it's a nice idea. I'm not certain that I feel that it's board work, that that's something that we would put on an agenda and add to, because the meeting is for the business of the board, and we have the salutes time, and I would think that would be a good thing for the high school to do, maybe, they have nights under the lights where they do the sports people, is there anything like that? But anyway, I don't know how we want to.
Just a suggestion.
We have 4 people that want to discuss the topic. We need to-
I'd be willing to discuss it. I think it sounds like a positive thing, so. I don't know the logistics of it, but I think us and us directly with students is always a good idea, so.
Yeah.
I need one more that's willing to, I've got 3 that I know of.
I'm always willing to discuss.
Yeah,
so.
I don't
Okay.
object having a conversation about it.
Okay.
I think you have one.
Yep.
Thank you, we'll bring that back.
We'll talk about talking about it.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Any others? I had brought up one, I think is probably already on your radar, though, at some point to give us an update after an ample amount of time to discuss the relationship with the Lighthouse Recovery, what is it called?
The volunteer
Refreshment
services for
memory.
our students, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll get an update on
Yes.
that at some point. Okay. Others, are we good?
No, I think we're good.
Anyone? Okay. If there are no others, this is the second opportunity for public comment. The rules from the previous time still apply. So are there any public comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the floor to public comment, and we do not have an executive session tonight. So I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We don't want to stay. No, at 7:56, and because there is no executive session, this concludes the recording of tonight's meeting as well. We are adjourned.